Stretch Diaries, part 2666, or something like that. I am recording this voice memo as I do yoga, well, stretch at least, in my office. And I wanted to describe the cacophony of events that was this past week. So I'm going to leave out specifics, the juicy tea, because I don't agree with the idea of putting anybody on blast when they do negative things. I think it awards them too much attention, and it doesn't award the topic at hand enough attention. And I know one would argue that that's a toxic pacifist thing to do, but in all these cases, have no problem telling that person what needs to be done and holding them accountable in that moment. But once that moment ceases, that exchange between them and I kind of part ways with everything except for the lesson. Unless, of course, it's somebody that I love, and in those cases it can be a little bit tricky. But I tend to, even in those cases, put up heavier boundaries with situations that incorporate people purposely hurting mine or the people I love's feelings. So while precluding the sin and while precluding the sinner and honing more into the sin, there have been an even amount, a complete paradox of good and bad this week. And the people on the kind end of things really struggled and had a lot of nightmares and a lot of conversations that they needed to cathartically get off of their chests to relieve their hearts from the notion that this world is as fucked up as it is right now. And in the midst of that, I had some asshole who didn't ask me my name but inquired about the registration on my car. And we're not talking about a state trooper pulling me over. We are just talking about someone who lives next door to an elderly man that I take care of. And he sees the medical scrubs on me and knows what I'm doing and decided to, instead of be a kind person, be a fucking asshole for no reason, doesn't even know my first name. So there was that, and then there was the kindness that was the person I was taking care of that day, which outshined that motherfucker because I decided that that was a more important priorital thing. And I think what makes it easy to compartmentalize in this regard is that you give your heart and your mind to one situation, and you give just your mind to the other. Yes, if you're emotional and you're an empath, you're going to feel it in that moment. You're going to feel it like it's boiling up in your fucking soul at times. But that said, you can control how you react to it. And sometimes I disappoint myself in this way, but most of the time I'm rather pleased in hindsight, at least at this phase in my life. That definitely wasn't true 10 years ago, especially when I drink. It was definitely not true during that time. So here we are, and I'm trying to be the best version of myself this week, and one person would act selfish, entitled, and bitter, and petty, and poking unnecessary bears that just, like this gentleman, for instance, that make no rational sense to me. And there was about seven people in the flesh, which is an obscene number, actually. I usually have 1 or 2 a year, but for some reason, it was an unbelievable shit fest out there. And don't get me started on politics. I think that's precipitating all this shit energy in the first place. So we have that, and now I have received so much love from my clients and my employers and partner and household and certain friends. And we have kind of kept each other afloat this week with positive or funny memes and videos and things. But getting specifically into my book, which I found kind of challenging. So, first, actually, let's backtrack a little bit. In order to deal with some of the stress, I stress cleaned the garage this week, and that incorporated the last 3 boxes of my shrine. I'll tell you what my shrine was real quick. Between 2013 and 2019, I created a little place in my closet. I went there and I meditated or glued things to it, things that I missed or things that inspired me or things I was studying. So, like the 42 laws of Maat were on there because I had just learned what they were when I was traversing Egyptology a little bit deeper. And the 4 Noble Truths were in there, so on and so forth, but also certain sacred geometry symbols that I painted or drew, and letters from people that I loved. 5 of them I've lost, actually contributed to it. And in the darkest of hell, when I was getting sober, and I was getting sober not just from alcohol entirely, but to the truth that I was stuck in a situation, and that while stuck there, I was ripped apart mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I mean, I have a bad back, and I was driving 17 hours a week and sitting on a hard court bench or sitting by a laptop. I was cleaning a building that was way too big. I was loading a wood furnace that I shouldn't have been because I have a bad back. I was doing payroll. I was doing QuickBooks, and I was raising 3 children and doing homework with them all and cooking 3. I was a businesswoman and a mediator and a mother and a maid and a chef, and that was okay. I loved half of what I was doing, especially because it challenged me intellectually and it made me a better person. It really did. But it broke me still, and I found a reprieve by that shrine. That was what it was there for. I could see people that I missed so much, pictures of them. As I was a shell of a person, I can reflect nostalgically on the smiles on their faces when times were different and we were all unanimously enjoying ourselves and happy. So, as a going away present, that was ripped into shreds and put into 6 bags. I have videos of the shrine. It was so beautiful. It started at the floor and as black, and it was white on the ceiling, and all the chakras on the wall a foot apart. Well, 2 feet each in height. So there were shells with crystals and deities and things like that on it anyway. I had a heart-wrenching time taking those things and finding them new homes, especially because at least 50% of it was completely ruined, non-salvageable. And as somebody who grew up in a foster home and knew that everything expensive I owned would potentially be stolen, especially in the neighborhood that I lived in, which lasted until I was 15, I learned to cherish letters and pictures and artwork and little tangibles that are not of monetary value so much as they are sentimental. And that's what that thing was made of. And every time I go into a box, it gives me such bad PTSD. But I was already having a fuck of a week anyway. I hadn't slept because of the anxiety of overthinking and overfeeling everything while trying to still write. And I was not going to let these scenarios prevent me from working on my book, because it's always one thing or another. It really is. And this was a challenge because it's in the middle of the novel and it needs to blend with the beginning and create several necessary layers to bridge both novels without continuity issues. I was both humbled by the task, irritated that it froze my fucking brain for a few days, but happy with the result, knowing that the rest of the chapter is merely decorating inside the foundation that I broke my mind to build. But here I am. And I got that done, and my job sent me a letter of appreciation, a pay raise, and I have such happy elders and disabled people that seem to be enjoying their lives a little bit more this week as a result of my showing up. And I enjoyed my week as a result of showing up as well. And coming home to my beloved animals and having my space clean, because I dealt with my stress by doing positive things instead of negative things this time. I'm okay, save for the nightmares and anxiety and the no sleep, which I hope to remedy tonight once I purge my brain of the last things clogging it after over-surmising, overthinking everything. Now, the lessons that come from these things are invaluable, so I will be all the happier and healthier and more evolved for it, hopefully. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I really fucking don't. But I'm going to try. And this is to note the effort. So at least for a good measure, I know that I tried. And if anybody is struggling with their week, I hope that they find the lesson and the value in that struggle, and maybe a silver lining that will help prevent those kinds of things from happening, albeit there are things which are out of our control completely, but sometimes preventive maintenance and having a certain mindset in our itinerary helps a lot. So